Approval of agenda. We do have some changes to the agenda. Committee and staff reports, deleted item 7.6, Boeing Corporation grant to Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation and CTE. And then 3.1, proclamation of Educational Support Professional Day. So we'll move on down to section 3, which we have proclamation of Educational Support Professional Day presented by our superintendent, Mr. Chambers. And then 3.2 will be recognition of school board member, the Honorable Dewey Destin. And before we move on, we would just like to say congratulations to Mr. Destin. He is going to be leaving this seat, but he's also now going to be moving on to the Destin City Council to serve the citizens of Destin. So congratulations to you there, sir.
Thank you very much.
We have no visitors at this time. Administrative personnel appointments, 5.1, appointment of Assistant Principal 2, 12-month Lewis School. And school board members, you should have got this last night in email. Mr. Chambers, any?
And the only thing I would say here is, of course, we'll have the process in place like we normally do. Unfortunately, we will not have, necessarily the whole Lewis family here to help congratulate, but the gentleman will be here on Monday. But also just reminding that this is filling the position, but it doesn't take effect until December. We had an assistant principal who was retired. So this is getting the process in place so they're ready to go, but no double fill, and just making sure that we're ready in December when the retirement takes effect. So no additional funds.
All right. And then we are section 6, public comment, 6.1, members of the public desiring to address the school board, form MIS 5241, public input and or discussion of agenda items. Section 7, which is for workshop only, committee and staff reports. 7.1, in-county travel paid for the period of October 8th through the 21st to 2020. 7.2, Liza Jackson Preparatory School Incorporated annual financial statement and supplemental audit for the year ended June 30th, 2020. 7.3, Okaloosa Academy Incorporated basic financial statements and supplement information for the year ended June 30th, 2020. 7.4, the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation Incorporated, a component unit of the Okaloosa County District School Board, financial statements for year ended June 30th, 2020. 7.5, Okaloosa County District School Board internal funds financial statement and supplementary information for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. And you should have copies of those. If you don't, Ms. Gallen will get them to you. And then, of course, 7.6 will be deleted. So then we'll move down to 8, consent agenda. 8.1 will be approval of the consent agenda. 8.2, approval of the minutes of the workshop meeting of October 22nd, 2020. Minutes of regular meeting of October 26th, 2020. 8.3, appropriation of District 2 School Board member capital outlay funds to Edwins Elementary School for cafeteria tables in the amount of $23,571.52 presented by Mr. Dewey Destin. 8.4, appropriation of District 4 School Board member capital outlay funds to Richburg School, Northwood Elementary School for painting of the gymnasium in the amount of $9,314.25 presented by myself. 8.5, appropriation of District 5 School Board member capital outlay funds to Lewis School for Media Center flooring in the amount of $20,687.97 presented by Dr. Diane Kelly. 8.6, invoices to be approved for payment. 8.7, school donations. 8.8, request to close the current Meigs Middle School internal funds checking account at Bank of America and open a new account at BBVA Bank effective November 10th, 2020. 8.9, internal funds checking account revisions due to closure of First City Bank submitted by Rita Scallon, our Chief Financial Officer. And 8.10, emergency purchase Laird Plastics. 8.11, renewal of fuel purchasing agreement with Okaloosa Academy Incorporated. 8.12, renewal of fuel purchasing agreement with Liza Jackson Preparatory School Incorporated. 8.13, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000, Apple. 8.14, ITB 21-03, fire sprinkler inspection services. 8.15, tag-on bid annual agreement for professional environmental consultant services. 8.16, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000 Apple. 8.17, tag-on bid purchase over $25,000 Professional Service Industries, PSI. 8.18, amendment to service agreement number 21-22, Ashley Johnson. 8.19, service agreement number 21-58, Northwest Florida State College. 8.20, service agreement number 21-59, Northwest Florida State College. 8.21, vehicle maintenance, inspection, and repair agreement with vehicle lease option between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Okaloosa Academy Incorporated. And 8.22, sale and disposal of surplus property. So now we'll move to Section 9, Superintendent's Human Resource Recommendations. The first two will be informational only on Monday night. So 9.1, employees on administrative leave, and 9.2, deferred retirement option program. 9.3, cleared certification requirements and issuance of contracts for the 2020-2021 school year. 9.4, out-of-field report for the 2020-2021 school year. 9.5, employment separations. 9.6, personnel recommendations. 9.7, employee transfers. 9.8, employee termination. 9.9, employee termination. 9.10, leave without pay. And 9.11, reinstatement and reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination. And Section 10 is discussion agenda. 10.1 will be any items moved from the consent agenda. And Section 11, construction programs, owners, representative business. And Mr. Destin, you are up, sir.
Thank you, sir. And we are working on the projects that we had from the last agended meeting, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the citizens of Okaloosa County for caring enough about their education system and their students to support the half-cent sales tax. That will go a long way toward alleviating the financial issues that we have in this area.
And I know Mr. Chambers in his business is going to talk more extensively about that, but I totally agree with what you said there, Mr. Destin. So we'll move down to Section 12, Information Technology Seat Management Contract, 12.1, CACI Task Order Number 2-177, OCSD Device Distribution Depot Support.
Chairman, I'm sure Eric talked to all of us about it. You know, normally this would be something we would have to look at a little more closely, but since we now have thousands more devices than we did a year ago, it makes sense that they're going to have to plug somebody in to try to make this position work more efficiently, and so I would be supportive of it.
Okay. And yes, I know Mr. Mitchell, I think, called all of us last night, or sometime yesterday. Okay, so Section 13, Attorney's Business, Mr. McInnes.
No report this morning.
Okay. Section 14, Superintendent's Business, Mr. Chambers.
Thank you, sir. I have a few updates this morning. In the first update, I want Dr. Hale just to come forward just for a second. As you know, we instituted a different, call it an incentive, so to speak, to try to get some substitutes into the building. Not a lot of data yet, but some good data, and just wanted him to share this and then come back in December and share more information once we have more data.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, board. As Mr. Chambers said, we only have about 6 or 7 days in our sampling to see how our sub-incentive is working out, but we do have a little bit of information, some numbers for you to be aware of. You know, on October 26th, the board meeting, you approved the $25 daily supplement for the subs for the COVID period. And on October 27th, I sent out an email through our subsystem to alert all the subs to that effect. Got a lot of good feedback based on that, a lot of thank yous, a lot of suggestions. I know some of you received some of those suggestions as well. And just so that you know how it's affecting our fill rate after 7 days, our overall October monthly average for the month of October prior to us doing this was 69% daily fill rate, which means roughly 4 in 10 jobs were going unfilled every day. The highest single daily rate in the month of October was 79% filled. So on the best day we had, 21% of the jobs were not being filled. That daily rate of 79% happened to be 2 days after the board meeting. So our highest daily rate in October followed your action, so that's important for you to know. For the 3 days so far that we've had in November, our daily fill rates have been 80%, 78%, and 81%, which is far in excess of the 60% that we were looking at as an average. So for those particular 3 days, we feel like it's having an impact. Still not wonderful. 80% is about where we were last year when we were trying some things, but it's better than it was. I think that early indications seem to indicate that the supplement that you provided is offsetting some of the COVID-related worries. And just so you know, today on this date is the second largest fill rate we've had in 2 months. So that's important for you to know. It's 81%. And of course, our unfilled raw data is lower. The lowest day that we've had in terms of our unfilled jobs, just in terms of raw jobs out there, was Tuesday of this week. So Tuesday of this week was the lowest unfilled job total we've had since the start of school. So it's only 6 days worth of data, but early returns seem to indicate that it's better. Still certainly not where we want to be. 80% is not something that we would be proud to show. In an average year, we'd still like to figure out a way to get 100% of our sub jobs filled. But to our subs' credit, they're stepping up. To our teachers' credit, some of the other information that's inside the data is that not as many jobs are being requested as well. So we're triangulating to the right place, and it's a work in progress. But I think that was important for you guys to know.
So just real quick, if you could explain to the people that are obviously watching the program right now, you said it was 81% today.
Mm-hmm.
So people that might be listening, they're wondering about the 19%. Is what's happening at the school if we still have 19% unfilled? And of course, we know that that's not really going unfilled, but we're having to move pieces around.
Right.
to
Right, and you're exactly right. There are no classrooms sitting there with students unattended.
Right.
We are having to figure out different ways to do that. Our support professionals have been very good over the course of this year, stepping up. There's a little incentive for them to fill a class too, but the unfortunate thing is when a support professional has to step in a substitute role, then something that's their normal job is going undone. So it does continue to create a burden in the classroom for the teachers that are without their classroom assistants or without their paraprofessionals who are stepping up to help. But to your point, Mr. Bryant, there are measures. Our principals are very creative in making sure that there's adults in the room, and certainly the credit goes to our principals, but also to our support professionals that step up and our team players, and we do appreciate them as well. And it's apropos that we're recognizing them in this board meeting because that's just one more feather in their cap. So,
Right. Thank you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. And I think the board knows, I think even across the state right now, substitutes are in high demand. So it's good to see, at least early on, there's at least some positive trends going the right way, and hopefully we'll continue to grow that fill rate. Also wanted to share just a little bit of information about My School Online and those students coming back to the brick and mortar schools. We've had about 1,332 students returning to brick and mortar for the second 9 weeks. That's about 644 elementary students, approximately 413 middle school students, and 275 high school students. And each of you know when we have the students coming back, there's a lot that's happening in terms of master scheduling, in terms of communication with the families, with the incoming teacher and the outgoing My School Online teacher. So very proud of the work that's being done. So that's already occurring right now, but that's the update there. We have about 6,114 students remaining in My School Online. So they will be there for in essence, the remainder of the second 9 weeks, for the first semester. And I would imagine at that point we'll probably have some students who will come back as well. And we've had about 20 elementary teachers who've returned from My School Online to the brick and mortar classroom. So those teachers are also to be commended. These are the teachers who stepped up, didn't necessarily have any health-related issues, but they stepped up and did My School Online, and so they're coming back to the brick and mortar. So that's a transition for those teachers as well. But I really appreciate that. And then our secondary teachers don't necessarily have a number by number, because those teachers are coming back period by period based on the number of kids who are transitioning back to the secondary level. So as you know, the elementary level, it's kind of one teacher. At the high school level, it's more, in secondary level, it's more sections. So we do have secondary teachers coming back into the building as well. Any questions as it pertains to that?
Go ahead.
Do we yet know the fiscal impact of that in terms of adding folks back, or let's not say adding, let's say hiring new folks because of that?
Absolutely. I'll have Mr. Horton come forward. And I know when we've gone through this process, we were very diligent to make sure that we're as cost neutral as we
Sure.
could be.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So thank you. So we're not hiring any new teachers to address the student movement. There are some situations, unique situations. For example, the union worked with us on online teachers in a secondary level, for example, where 176 was the cap for an online teacher to be full-time, and then beyond that, they could be paid a 6th period to teach up to 206 students. Well, as students continue to transition to online throughout the fall, because we never set any deadlines on that movement out of the school, some of those trickled over 206, and there were just nowhere to put those students. So there are some spot places where we've had to add a 6th period, but nothing in terms of hiring new positions to fill. And in fact, in a couple of places, where a resignation occurred or a leave, we kind of moved pieces around and kept from hiring a position.
Wow. So give me the number again of how many came back. Was it say 1,200?
1,332.
Okay, all right. So you took that many students back into the system and added or hired no new employees other than maybe a few extra periods.
That's correct.
Well, that certainly deserves commendation. And as a board member who's tasked by law with the budget, I'm very grateful. So thank you. Thank you for being able to do that. And I can only imagine the various machinations you must have had to have gone through to make that happen. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. And there are a lot of people involved, and it's less me than the folks in the schools and the administrators carefully and thoughtfully placing students back in courses. So
Awesome.
they've done a good job. And the other good news is now that it's settled, we may be able to go back, and in places where that teacher was teaching 208 students or 180 students and a 6th period, and of course they all know that those are not promised for the year,
Right.
we'll be able to go back and hopefully pull reduced by some 6 periods out there.
And recoup those dollars
Yes, sir.
back into the budget, because we all got notification of the reduction. So excellent. Very good. Very good.
Steve, before you walk off,
Sorry.
I do have a question. So with all that's transpiring out there, what is our class size looking like?
So class size was captured October 12th, I think, 9th or the 12th. And so we look to be in good shape for meeting class size. Those final results don't come back in. There's actually amendment windows into December.
Right.
But we should receive a report that we're class size compliant.
Okay.
Now, it is important to know that based on increased enrollment in schools, districts have the ability to go above class size once the Survey 2 capture is completed. And so we certainly have had increased enrollment in schools. And so you may see in certain places where there are more than 18 or 22 or 25 students in a class. And again, that's a testament to the teachers as well, because they are accepting, and it's not atypical. It happens each year, but they're accepting and understand that in this kind of environment, and especially the COVID environment, so we have to be very careful about that. And so I tell the administrators, if you see a class that's getting too large and we've got some concerns about it, they need to make sure they bring it to my attention to see if we need to address a 6th period or an extra class there. But so I think you'll get a report when they come out, typically in December or January, that we're class size compliant.
Okay. All right. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
All right. And you might just want to stay up here Mr. Horton. I do want to say for the half-cent sales tax, and we're going to give just a little bit of some information. Myself, Mr. Horton, Ms. Scallon, Mr. McGinnis, going to give some information. But I do also want to just say thank you to the citizens of Okaloosa County. This is a major step for us in terms of what I like to say is what does the next generation of Okaloosa schools look like. And I also want to say thank you to Ms. Ankers, Mr. Corcoran, Mr. Mayfield, as well as the Chambers of Commerce in Destin, Fort Walton, Niceville, and Crestview. And to have a group that really looks at the grassroots level and really working to push this for our school district, for our students, for our employees, I think is fantastic. So very much appreciate that. And one of the questions that we've already been receiving is, so now what? When do we start? And I think the board knows that there's processes in place, there's bids in place, items have to come to a school board meeting in order for things to take place. But what I would like to do right now is Mr. Horton to spend just a little bit of time maybe elaborating on that piece right there, and then Ms. Scallon and Mr. McGinnis also give them some information to the board. I think it'll give us the information that we need when we're questioned, in the public of, hey, when do we begin and what's going on. But I'm very excited for our students, for our teachers and staff and our principals. This is going to be much needed for our facilities, and we appreciate that.
And then I obviously will defer to Mr. McGinnis and Ms. Scallon about process and notification from the state and things like that, and stay away from the financial piece. What I will say is that as Mr. Chambers said, I know everyone's anxious to begin, and so the board had the foresight to approve specific project lists for every school posted on our website. And so what doesn't have to happen is the creation of a plan of what are we going to do with all this money. So that's great foresight on the part of the board. At this point in time, it's really about timelining those things out and making sure we make the best use of our resources. So I'm anxious. You could say the real work is getting ready to begin, but that would belittle or demean the work that's been done up to this point, which has been significant, not only by board members in terms of their support out in the public, but by, as Mr. Chambers said, that the School Sense Makes Sense group who, really at a grassroots level, I think did the things that we were hoping a community group would come forward and do, because with this particular election and all the difficulties surrounding it and COVID, I think it was a lot of things that could have tripped up the effort. So it's a testament to the voters in the county that it was important enough to them to get that approved. So we will be developing, just for informational purposes, a website off of our school district website that will house all of the information related to this sales tax referendum. Yes, sir.
We think Ms. Vancheck might be coming in. Michelle. Ms. Vancheck, is that you?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, all right.
And so we're meeting, already meeting and looking at those project lists to make sure that we can present back to the board when action will occur. But again, that website will document everything that's involved with the referendum, including the Citizens Committee, and any questions that we receive about it. So my goal in this thing, and I'm sure every board member's goal and the superintendent, is to be completely transparent and accountable for everything we do. And I think those approved project lists are the first big step. So we know exactly what we said we would do, and people can check off the list as we go down to make sure that it's been done. And I would defer to Rita and Mr. McGinnis to answer questions about timing and other things in terms of the revenue itself. And I'll be on standby.
Ms. Scallon, if you want to start it off. We know how much you love coming up in front of the microphone. So.
Good morning. I also, as a finance person, would like to thank the community group for advocating for our students and our employees in the facilities, and also for the actual voters who voted to pass this, and we've needed it for 20-plus years, and so we are very, very thankful for that. So as soon as we got the information that the referendum passed yesterday morning from a finance perspective, we contacted our financial advisor, who will help us through the process of, we will have projects that we can accelerate through a certificate of participation, and then projects that will be pay-as-you-go. So we're already, we're meeting today, we're looking at those, looking at how to package those projects that will be most attractive to COP participants, and which gives us the best interest rates. And so all of that's ongoing immediately, and so it will take a little while, because you have to go through a process of doing a COP, underwriters, council, all of those kinds of things. So once that is determined, it could be 90 to 120 days before we would be able to get actual funds to start some of those construction projects.
Looking out that window behind you, I see the oldest bus fleet in the state of Florida. So, could we talk about that maybe? Any ideas about that specifically? This may not be timely, but as I passed one this morning, I can't help but ask.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Absolutely, and so that's part of this process, and as you know, the bus fleet is part of the half-cent sales tax as well. So I'm going to have Mr. Horton come on up. It's one of the things that we've planned for, and to actually have a bus replacement program, so to speak,
Okay.
where we're going to buy X number of buses each year is going to be
Awesome.
exciting.
Okay.
So, and one of the key words to this are cash flow, because there may not be money in the capital budget at this moment in time to make purchases, so it depends on the timing of the sales tax revenue as it comes in. So if my hope would be, and Mr. McGinnis's hope would be, if it's possible to do some purchasing of school buses, because there's about a 6-month lead time on those. If they're able to be purchased this spring, then we could have a number available to replace this aging fleet for the beginning of the school year.
Do the new ones come with air conditioning?
They
Yeah.
do, sir.
Oh.
They do.
Seatbelts too, I bet.
Wow.
They come with seat belts and air conditioning. These modern things, I know, but in Florida, but they do.
Wait a minute, I remember when we first got air conditioning, so.
Yeah. And just to that point on the buses, keeping in mind with the oldest fleet in the state, maintenance costs are high.
Right.
As we begin to cycle through and get newer buses, two things happen. Our maintenance costs on our fleet will go down, but Jay also shared with me yesterday something I was not aware of, and that is these new buses that are under warranty. There was a time when we had a significant number of new buses decades ago that the bus company actually placed an individual in our district to do warranty work, and so they were actually working on our fleet. And so maybe there'll come a day a few years down the road where that happens again. Until then, any new buses under warranty, we take to Pensacola to get repaired.
Okay.
But that'd be some
Awesome.
great savings on maintenance.
Awesome. Okay, that's great.
All
Thank
right,
you.
we'll update you, and you'll see that again as everything on this project list ends up coming back to the board for approval anyway.
So every new
hopefully-
bus that the citizens and taxpayers see on the road, that's the consequence of this vote.
That is.
That's awesome.
That
Thank
is.
you.
It's a shame there's not some way we could, put a
Sign.
something on them
Yeah,
so they
that's
would
right.
see them.
Oh, yeah.
Could we
Well,
paint them blue or something?
We can do something. I did say to Miss
Really?
Ellie, Miss Ellie's in the front of transportation here in Central, and she's going to be retiring in Thanksgiving. I thought, wouldn't it be great if we named our school buses, this is Miss Ellie, or put a big picture of her on the side.
Put a little star on them, something.
And on the topic of buses, I'll say, Steve, that I really had to hold back. Last week, I was in Orange County, Orlando, of course, seeing that new grandbaby, and all of these fleet of new buses going past me, and one parked almost by where I was parking. I almost took pictures of that shiny, bright new bus to compare to some of our old ones, but I held back.
Yep.
Well,
But it's going to be awfully nice to
And
see.
just coincidentally, in contrast to that
buses.
Tuesday morning, Election Day, I was driving down 85 here, and one of our buses pulled out in front of us and hit the gas pedal, and I was engulfed in a cloud of white smoke. And I pulled out my phone to take a picture, but it had dissipated by then, but it's a
It could have
contrast.
been a movie effect.
That's right.
Well, and I think for people in the general public who are out on the road and you're making a comment about painting them, just look at the number. The first two numbers is the year that bus was
Yeah.
purchased in. So if you see a 98 or a 99, that's not, the end of the line. That's the end of the decade or the end of the century there when that bus was
Yes, sir.
purchased. So the higher the number right now, if you see a 20, then you know it was this year, which we won't see any 20s probably, but in the future we will. So
See some soon, yes, sir.
yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McGinnis?
Mr. McGinnis?
We provided a preliminary notice yesterday to the Florida Department of Revenue that the referendum had passed, and we will provide an official notice within the next few days. They have to have a copy of the election results and a certified copy of your resolution and all that. We're getting that packaged up now so that it will go to them, which will allow them to then prepare for the collection of this tax. And the board, as part of the foresight here, as Ms. Scallon mentioned, the board already has approved some time back an agreement with a financial advisor, and so that lets us move ahead right away with that person on board. And we have other team members that are out there that the district has used before that will all be part of working together with the board and the superintendent to get the priority laid out there, the funding in place properly, and help get this project moving forward.
And I do want to say, even in piggybacking on that, so I do appreciate the work of Rita, Steve, and Jeff in terms of the groundwork that's already been laid, even prior to the half-cent sales tax, just to make sure that we're prepared to move forward. And I also want to say, we've said throughout this campaign, so to speak, leading up to November 3rd, that this is also a two-pronged approach, and we understand that there's the needed repairs within our schools, which is important, which is crucial that we get that done. But we also understand the capacity levels within our school, especially in the Crestview area, the Niceville area, in Destin, in terms of the lower grades. So we will also be looking at that as well, of course, keeping the board up to speed and bringing the necessary components to the school board. But that is also a necessary piece to this process, is getting our buildings to a place where we're not over 100% capacity. And that's
Anything else?
where we are today. And of course, we'll have and I do want to say also, each school board meeting going forward, we will always have a half-cent update for you.
Awesome. And, that's a great idea about transparency. So we want the public to know. All of us have probably seen and heard, where what's going to happen, where's the money going, what have y'all done with it? We're going to show you. So,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
And I
All
think
right.
you're going to be very proud of the website piece when it's done, showing basically every step of the way of what's occurring. So I think that'd be a neat thing.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers, and staff, thank you for the update there. So now we'll move down to school board members' announcements and requests. And for those that don't know, Ms. Ivanchek is not present here today, but she is on the phone. So we're going to start with Ms. Ivanchek with her announcement. So Ms. Ivanchek, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the board for cooperating with me this morning and allow me to come in by phone. I'm a little bit under the weather today, but thank you. A couple of things. First of all, let's start with my Gators. Got to do that. They are remaining undefeated. And also want to congratulate Coach Brunson on his 100th win last Friday night as the Gators coach. So they're continuing to do great up there at Baker, and they're going to be hosting Port St. Joe this Friday night as they go into the Sunshine State Athletic Conference Championship. So excited for them. On Saturday, the girls volleyball team is going to head east to Jackson County, where they are in the semifinals or the Final Four for volleyball. So we're wishing them well as they head over there to play Sneads High School. And then a couple of things on the sales tax on Tuesday night, election night, all the things going on. I just wanted to see that ticker thing going down the bottom on the sales tax. That was the most important, and so thrilled when we crossed that and saw that passed. I want to thank the committee. Was headed up by Michelle Anchors and all them, what they did, and all the chamber, all the people, the local citizens who pushed that. They worked tirelessly to help that get through, and it was so exciting. And I just want to say to the public that I'm glad that the superintendent mentioned about having the updates, but some of the things like seeing new buses, they will get to see, but other things won't be able to be seen. You know, when new pipes get put in and all that, you can't necessarily see that, but understand that we are going to be working on that, and we will be having that oversight committee that will be of the citizens that will be sharing that we are doing what we said that we're going to do. So it's exciting to get going. And since I've brought this up several times as we've talked about this topic, I just thought I would throw in that the other county that was trying to get this passed, the one last county besides us, Duval, also was successful in getting theirs passed. So now every district in the state of Florida does have a tax or some kind of means of getting some things done. So I guess in the big picture, all the students in the state of Florida are winners in getting some improvements in their schools. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ivanchik. And Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, a couple of things. Not only am I just so delighted about the sales tax initiative, but not just for what it means for the future, but also for what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that we will have to take the steps that we might have had to make, for instance, with middle school sports and cutting that out. And so a good example of that is with the Niceville Lady Eagles golf team. They placed second in the state. And we have Blake Rigdon as just another example of a golfer that I watched from a fifth grader go through middle school golfing program who now could potentially have a scholarship in golfing. So the sales tax not just enables us to do these wonderful things that we've had our eyes on for so long and is so needed, but it prevents us from making those cuts that we may have otherwise had to make to very instrumental and very foundational programs, I believe, that support young people through to college and to success in life. And also the Niceville cross country, the girls placed first at state, so that's wonderful. And I'll just end with this comment. Ted Cruz has a new book out that you should read if you haven't read. I don't read a lot of political sociology, but this is really a good book. And he has a quote in there, or several quotes in there, that I think are appropriate to our situation. And one of them is that we are always one vote and one generation from change. And we all ought to be sure that that change nets us the change we want for our children. And since I have a new grandson, and we typically think of one generation away being 20 years, in 20 years he'll be a graduate, hopefully of junior college, and we hope that we made that one vote count for the change we want to see before the next generation comes. And I think with our sales tax, we've certainly done that. I don't think our schools could have made another 20 years without it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Dr. White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Destin, I most appreciated your work and service on the as the board member representing us on construction, and I well remember when you spoke to us at length about the consequence to really what amounted to school safety if the citizens did not pass this measure. And that really made an impact on me, and I think it did on citizens as well. And I couldn't help but sense a little appreciation in your voice as you spoke to that, because you really knew what would happen if we didn't pass the sales tax. And what we all know is that we've had to do the proverbial rob Peter to pay Paul, and no longer will that be necessary. And we also know that really the last thing you want to do in this business is, as Dr. Kelly mentioned, cut services to kids or cut programs to pay for facilities. That's really the last thing that you want to do, and I too am grateful, Dr. Kelly, that that will not be necessary. I know that we've already spoken and thanked the superintendent and the other board members, to all the people that were involved in making this a success, but in this case, I think it's okay to name them again. So I would like to thank Michelle Ankers, Mr. Ted Corquin, the Greater Fort Walton Beach Chamber of Commerce, the Niceville Valparaiso Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Crestview Area Chamber of Commerce, the various political groups and clubs, if you will, that endorsed this half-cent sales tax and really helped us move it forward to the citizens. And also all the different cities in Okaloosa County that endorse this, as well as numerous elected officials. I'd like to also thank the superintendent and his staff for all the work that they did. And Superintendent, I delighted in watching you and Ms. Ankers on TV as you spoke for the need for this to all of our citizens. And then finally, all of our employees and for their support. And then I guess very, very importantly, to the citizens of Okaloosa County who stepped up and voted a tax upon themselves to improve our schools. And I just wanted to say that I'm very grateful to all the individuals that did that. I was associated with a failed such initiative one time, and I know the disastrous effect that has had. And now we can move forward and make some wonderful progress and maybe even have air conditioning on our school buses. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Dr. White. And Mr. Destin.
Thank you, Chairman. And Dr. White hit it right on the head. Without this half cent, we were looking at a time period to complete our security upgrades that was really not acceptable to any of us or to the public. This is really going to make all of that issue go away. So it was very important. And I also want to thank Ms. Ankers and Mr. Corcoran and all the folks who were involved in this, because they went forward during arguably the worst economic recession driven by a pandemic in the last 100 years, and some pretty stout opposition locally, and still prevailed. And they did a fantastic job.
Thank you, Mr. Destin. And I will just finish up by saying exactly what my fellow school board members have already said. Thank you to everybody involved, but mostly thank you to the people of Okaloosa County for, one, having complete confidence in this school board, because in my 4 years on the school board, I've served with 6 honorable people who truly put our children first, and we make decisions on the budget based on, of course, the money that we have, but I can assure you that we do our best to be good stewards of that of taxpayer dollars. And it's an honor to sit with these 4 individuals that are up here right now. But know that this morning I was in Crestview and I was at a restaurant eating breakfast, and a friend of mine approached me and he said, "Hey, I voted for the half-cent sales tax. You better spend money wisely." So I will just tell the people that are watching right now, we will do our best to be good stewards of that taxpayer dollars. And I think the initiatives that Mr. Chambers has already said is going to show the transparency of how we're going to spend that money. And I think the people of Okaloosa County will be very proud to say that our school system is already one of the top-ranked school systems, but when you have the facilities to match it, you're going to be even more prouder. So with that being said, thank you, Mr. Chambers, and thank you to everybody, all the staff out there that's involved in this process, and to my fellow school board members. So we'll move down to 16 will be the 2-minute version of public comment, and we do have public hearing on Monday night. So 17.1 will be public hearing for the adoption of revised school board policy 01-07, school board rules. And Mr. McInnes, anything you want to say about that?
Just a reminder, this is a revision to your policies that will put in a rolling review and amendment process for all of your policies so that they'll be reviewed. We do that now, but this will formalize a rolling process to ensure that they're all reviewed on a schedule.
All right, so we'll start out. Patrick, anything? Jordan? Sheila? Lee? Rita? Steve? All right, this meeting's adjourned.